So 2020's The Invisible Man is a pretty damn good movie. Pretty damn good. I was not expecting to really like this. So, this movie stars Elizabeth Moss, Aldous Hodge, and Storm Reed. And it's about this woman named Cecilia, who is played by Elizabeth Moss, and she's trying to get away from her rich, crazy, and super possessive, just to put it lightly, boyfriend Adrian. And while seemingly looking like she's gotten away, still living in paranoia, she finds out that Adrian has killed himself, leaving her with a huge amount of money, but only if she's deemed sane and mentally capable. And while all is seeming really well, she starts to realize that she may not be out of the grasp of Adrian, as somehow, some way, he's come back from the dead and he is coming after her. Now she has to try to figure out how to get him completely out of her life for good this time, while not coming across looking crazy. Now, like I said, I didn't expect this movie to be this damn good of a picture. Now, Elizabeth Moss, as I said it in the podcast before, that I really enjoy her performance in the other movies that she's in, and I enjoy her as an actress. And she completely solidifies it. Like, she kills this role. Like, she kills it completely. I enjoy her performance, and she did an excellent and phenomenal job. And everybody else did too. Aldous Hodge, he did a really good job in his performance. And Storm Reed, being a kid, a lot of people give him a lot of flack for just, not really executing the role right and everything else. But I feel like she did a really good job up in there, and I'm not alone with it. And in this movie, the scares were legit. It was kind of like they were methodical in everything that was happening. And I like when certain things happen gradually to the scare, and it has a legit scare, and this movie has just tons of it. And they utilize the silent moments of the movie to kind of like emphasize just maybe something there, or it may not be, just with like certain camera angles in one spot. It's like, is there something there or is it not? And you're constantly looking for hints that he may end up being there, or is he not? And they just kind of like held that question up in the air, not even just for the characters in the movie, but for us as an audience member. And I thought that that was like beautifully done. And this movie did have several surprise moments. Moments that would catch you off guard, that would just happen unexpectedly, that just have your mouth drop and like, you wasn't expecting that. And I really did like that about this movie, because it was unexpected, but at the same time, it was done effectively. And this movie just all around was well crafted, and just how certain things were done. This is a movie that you could tell that the filmmakers and everybody behind it really kind of like put some thought into it, and just didn't want to make it just like any other movie that you would see that's just made for money, like The Turning or The Boy 2 or The Grudge and all that stuff. They really put some type of care and love into making this film. But the movie, although it does have some surprising moments, and it does it effectively, like I said, it does have some predictability up in the movie. It didn't take too much away from the movie, but I felt it was kind of like contradictive. And this movie, even though it does a lot good, it does have moments where characters do the most stupidest things, and I just you kind of be like, why would you do that? Why would you stand there? Why would you, it had one of those moments. And even though it is good, it doesn't stray away from that, and that for me was just a complete negative. Though another negative for me was the score. At times it can be overwhelming, like too overwhelming for what it calls for. You're already doing everything right. You didn't need the brand everything, just to be that loud. Like that, they could have toned that down and just did something else. And I did like the slow descent into madness with the main character, and the sheer paranoia of her situation, and the hopelessness, the fear, the isolation, etc. that she was going through. Even though she had people around her that supported her, he still made her feel alone, and I felt like that was done beautifully. And there was a lot of tension and suspense throughout the whole movie, and it was handled really well. And the psychological aspect of it, because this movie is really basically a psychological thriller, I usually don't like those type of movies, but the way it was done in this movie, I really did appreciate it. And just, I can't really like get into it, but the beginning sequence, when this movie first opens up, is one of the best parts of this whole movie. It was, the way it was done, I really did enjoy it. It would catch you from just the beginning scene. And you will find yourself really feeling for the main character and her whole situation. And I really did like the manipulation of characters and how it's used in this movie. It was done really well. And how it translates to manipulating how we perceive things to be as well as an audience member. Like just killing two birds with one stone is the best way that I can put it. And just to compare it for a second to the Hollow Man movie with Kevin Bacon that came out some years ago, I love how this movie follows the victim rather than the killer, which brings out more of the horror, because a lot of times, mostly all the time, there is more horror in what you don't know than what you do know. And it makes the character more relatable than if we followed the killer, because a lot of us have felt isolated and alone and fearful and everything else, and we felt that helplessness. And I feel like it utilizes itself more towards the emotion of the film for us as an audience member, and it benefits the filmmaker and the actual film because of it. But don't get me wrong, the Hollow Man film wasn't totally not relatable, because a lot of us, to be honest, may not have the best intentions if we had the power to turn invisible. But I feel like this scenario is more relatable than that scenario. At the end of the day, this is not by any stretch a perfect film. If you dive into it, you know, you can find a lot of plot holes. But for me, it didn't take it away from how good the film is and a lot of the aspects that was done extremely well. And if you didn't really get my review after listening to this, know what my verdict is. This movie is a definite hit. This is just amazing. A movie that has a lot of rewatchability, and a movie that a lot of filmmakers and studios should really look at and just see how this movie was crafted and try to do future horror films in the same fashion and try to do it as well as this movie did it, because this movie was just incredible and one of the best movies so far this year. Even though we have the current situation going on, still is one of the best. I highly recommend it. VOD, go ahead and check it out if you have not seen it yet.